Hey everybody, my name is Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show, where I bring on guests that are real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their community that educate, entertain, and inspire all things real estate on how you can take your company to the next level. So, on my show today, I have this wonderful real estate title company, title person. Her name is Lisa Andrews. She is wonderful. She has so much energy. The first time I met her, I think we were both just going back and forth about so much real estate stuff. And she is just full of knowledge. She's been in the game for a long time, and she runs this company, Golden Dog Title, in Jacksonville, in the St. Augustine and St. John's area. But they have such a great group. They are always there for you. And on the show, I'm going to have Lisa. She's going to break down a few things today that is just really interesting. First of all, Lisa is this incredible resource. And if you don't know where to go, Lisa is the person to go to. She will help you know where to go, find the right people. She's just a valuable resource. And one thing she's also going to talk about is how she's really good about getting people together and helping people personally and professionally really take their game to the next level. And I think a lot of people in real estate want to know how you do that. How do you really take that next level, that next step? And somebody like Lisa's been in the game for so long. If anybody knows, Lisa knows. So she's going to really dive into that. And talking about how you can be proactive on a deal early on to find out exactly what's happening before you really dive in. I've always been a big proponent of that. I don't think you should dive into a deal until you know everything about it, or as much as you can, so that, look, you're not going to dive into something that you didn't know about. And I love that mentality of Lisa. That is so critical. And that's because she sees it from a title side. And if you don't do title, it's hard to see it that way. But that's why you have a resource like Lisa. And last but not least, one of the best topics you could talk about for a title company and for a real estate deal are title commitments. I stress that a lot. I say, look, if you don't get a title commitment, you're doing yourself a disservice. Everybody needs to know what's going on in the deal up front right away so that you know what you're going up against. You need to know how many probates you're dealing with. You need to know about mineral rights. You need to know if there's foreclosures open, and whether a pending tax deed sale is about to occur. If you don't know that stuff, you're diving into something you really either shouldn't, or it's going to take so many months to close and everybody's going to be frustrated. She's going to love talking about that, and I'm going to love hearing about that, and so are you. So without further ado, we have Lisa Andrews. Lisa, welcome.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good morning. So we're going to dive in on everything that I kind of went through to preface the show on. But before we do, I think it's so important for people to know more about you, know more about where you were in your business, more about Golden Dog, and talking to us about your story, your background, and everything about Lisa from before to now. So talk to us.
Well, I started out in banking. That was my first real job doing in the bank. And that took me into lending. And so I did lending for a while. Then I was one of the first mortgage brokers. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. So I was one of the first mortgage brokers back in the late 80s. That started out where we were charging people 10 points on every deal because you could, and that was just the thing. It was really interesting starting that because no one even knew what a mortgage broker was. So you had to sell yourself, even say that this is what we do, and then, and go from there. But from that, then I went into, that put me right into mortgage lending. And I did that until I did underwriting. And then I had my first child. And during this time, my husband had always worked for himself. So he always had a business going, but we basically stopped everything and opened a tool rental. So, yep, tool and equipment rental place.
That's different.
But I had, so I can drive a Bobcat and do all that kind of stuff. And when I decided to go back to work after my daughter was in kindergarten, I went back to the lender that I had gone to before, the title company that we used to work with. And I just happened to walk in there and say, well, I'm going to start going back to work. And they hired me on the spot. Now, back then, title, when I was in the lending, we had to clear the commitment. We gave the title company everything they needed to get the commitment clean. The title company didn't do that for us. We had to say, okay, here's this, this, and this. So when I went to go to work for title, I already actually knew how to do it because of when I was in lending, we had to do all of that.
Wow. So the
Or they tricked me. I don't
in-
know. Maybe they tricked me before when I was in lending, but so it's just something that I have always found interesting to get a mortgage paid off or to find out where this tax lien is, to get all that taken care of so we can get the deal on the table. It's really just about this satisfaction of getting it closed.
Right. That's what it is all about. So that's a great backstory. So really having been in that mortgage industry, having helped where you are today, and it was like no different, right? Like you
Right.
had to be able to close those things before, and now it's even more important. You just deal with a lot more of the trickier stuff on title. So you've obviously noticed that the world of title is something that you want to do, very much different from the world of the mortgage companies. So what would you have told yourself or anybody that is diving into the title world, or in the real estate world, having done mortgages or wanting to do title, along the way? What advice would you have given people or yourself, and looked at differently now?
Well, I feel lucky because I was in the lending and mortgage before, and that has helped me along the way because I understand what the mortgage person wants to get the deal done. I understand what the real estate agent, what they need to get it done. I think I have empathy for all of that and understanding the background of what it takes to get something to the closing table. That helps. And so I think if I was to give someone advice, I would tell them to sit down with a couple of realtors, an attorney, a mortgage person, so they can understand how all of it works before it comes to you. So they have the background and they have the knowledge to understand what they're not just trying to shove something down your throat because here it comes. And I don't mean to sound bad, but when I need to close today, maybe they really do need to close today. Maybe that rate is expired. Maybe, we don't know what that whole backstory's been, or maybe there was a difficult seller or that wasn't doing what they needed to do. If you understand all of that, you understand that it really does need to close today, and it really does, that's taken priority. And I understand that, and I want it to work for them. So I think that's the big thing, is understanding what everybody else does to make all the cogs in the wheel to make it work.
And that's tricky in itself, because you'll come across either a lot of agents, a lot of investors that they know what they do, they know the side of the work they do. But then, yes, when you start bringing in title or an attorney, or whoever it is, it's tricky because it's hard to know everyone's role. It's almost like if you don't know what they do, your expectations are a little different. So it helps to be educated on as much as possible on what that person is,
Right.
what they do, and that really kind of translates into one of the topics that you want to discuss, about being proactive on deals and finding out as much as possible, as much as what you can do. I would say that is definitely step one: learning who all the players are in the industry as much as you can. And then two, once you've learned about Lisa and title, now learning what do you have to do to make sure the deal that you found, the deal that you worked so hard for to get, is going to work, is, all of that stuff put together.
Right. So I like to have my real estate agents, they'll call me and talk to me about a deal. But if it's something that's just not straightforward, and I feel like there's a lot of things that aren't straightforward these days, we talk about it first and we decide to order title before they even get it a listing, or before they get it actually in the MLS. That way we know what we have to do to get that clear. So they're not sitting around once they have a contract and waiting to close. We can take care of any kind of problems, if there are any, prior to getting under contract. We've had times where there's someone has passed away in the family. We actually had one where there was a murder,
Okay.
and there were a boyfriend came. Well, this is I don't know who will remember the story, but anyway, there was a murder. The boyfriend killed the girlfriend who owned the house. She had kids, and the children were underage. And so we had to figure out what we were going to do to get guardianship for the kids to be able to, I mean, it was like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 10-step process that, it actually ended up not working out.
Really? So,
Yes.
I'm pretty familiar with the guardianship world. It's hard to the situation has to really work for it to make sense, and there obviously has to be enough meat on the bone and equity to make sure that the kids and the children are paid. What about the deal itself? Because this happens to a lot of investors, a lot of realtors. I'll get that question. I'll get that email. They'll say, there's 3 kids, one's a minor. Ugh, what do we do? What about that deal specifically? Not that the guardianship may not have been possible. What was the deal? Was it the money? Was it just how young they were? How long it was going to be open for? What was it?
So there's a couple of things. It was the parent of the person that was deceased wanted to make sure that their person's name was like that they paid all their debt. They want to make, they were just trying to sell the house so that it didn't go into foreclosure, and it didn't look bad on the person that was already gone. And there really was not equity to do that. The second part was the children did not live in the state of Florida. And so we couldn't, different states have different laws. And so you couldn't have a guardian for someone, even for the sale of the real estate, because it's just for that sale. It's not just a regular guardianship. For that sale, we couldn't have someone from Florida say that this is the way it could be. It had to be from that state as well. So there was a lot of different things. And one of the kids was out of the country also. So you had someone out of the country, someone in a different state, and then one person here, and no equity. So it didn't make sense eventually in the end to do anything with it, unfortunately. But you don't want to drag someone and cost them money either when it really doesn't make sense. I don't feel like it's not worth it to me to make $1 and have someone else spend 500. I don't like that. I don't like that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The deal's always got to make sense, and I'm
Right.
always a proponent of that. If it's a lot of equity, great, you're helping everyone. But when it's too tight, it's just not going to work. It's funny how I don't do any title. I don't do any of the stuff you do, Lisa, and it's crazy how almost our worlds kind of overlap
Right.
because we may do the guardianship, we do the probate, stuff like that. And I hear you talk about it, and it reminds me of a deal that I had recently, where it's tricky doing the guardianship stuff. It's hard to explain to the average real estate agent or any of the investors, because the amount of work that goes into it and how much the court oversees things like that. And what people don't know, they'll say, well, why can't we just get this closed? Why can't we do this? Which leads into this topic, because title insurance is not going to allow the buyer to have a policy until something like this is done, because boy, oh boy, you have minors involved. They don't want to hear any claims later when they turn 18 to impose a claim. And so people will say, well, how did you know? Where did you see that? And it's on that title commitment that comes back, and everybody's got to review things like that. So guardianship's one, things like probate pop up on it. But talk to us a little bit about the title commitment. I love title commitments. I think they're different in my world than title searches. I'm sure we could have a discussion on that all day, but I think title commitments give you bottom line, bottom answer. Talk to us about that.
So whenever we get a listing or a contract, we send the title commitment out we send it out to the realtors as well as the buyer and seller. I send it to the realtors. It's not their job to explain it to the buyer or seller, but because the first person that's going to call them is their buyer or seller. They're not going to call me first, even though we sent it. So I just like to have the realtors know that we're sending it out, and if there's questions, then they can call us. But some of the things that I have found, one, we talked about mineral rights. We had a buyer and seller, and we sent the commitment out, and the buyer noticed on his Schedule B2, because the buyer stuff is on Schedule B2 that they care about, because that's what's not going to be insured. That's what's not covered. The Schedule B1 is what we have to take care of. We have to pay off, or we have to, transfer the deed. That's what's on Schedule 1 or Schedule B1. So the buyer knows that there were mineral rights on the exceptions, and they did not want that to be an exception. So we looked into it and went back to the 40s actually, and there was it was for lumber, so it was timber rights, and they wanted them. So we found the company that still held them, and the seller and buyer agreed on an amount to pay to get that taken care of, and we took care of that prior to closing. And the seller had no idea, had lived there since 1972, didn't know that he had mineral rights to a property, had no idea, because he never looked at it. And it's not something average Joe would ever look at or pretend to know.
Yeah, because mineral rights rarely come up in anything. I think maybe I've seen it a couple times on a deed where it says how the subsurface rights or mineral rights are not included. So that's super rare to come up on a deal. But important.
In Florida, it's super rare. It's not rare in lots of other places.
Okay, there you go. Especially with the natural gas and then the timber.
Right.
But I mean, you see it more often than I mean, I would think that it doesn't come up as often, but you never know in Florida. But title commitments, I think in my world that people should look at them more. So investors should look at them more. Agents should look at them more. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I think that people should be more involved in what you do than about the deal and when it's closing, when the inspection's happening. People overlook the commitment. People overlook the title insurance requirements, because you could get the best deal ever. Buyer and seller are happy. The agents are getting along, but title is tricky.
Right. So there was another deal where there was, the realtor just didn't go over the covenants and restrictions in a neighborhood. And the buyer bought a property thinking they could put a fence on it. They were on a retention pond, and the restrictions in the neighborhood were, if you were on the pond, you couldn't have a fence because it obstructs the view for the neighboring houses. Well, the deal closed, and because they weren't notified, they went to put up a fence, and the HOA said they could not, and they couldn't put on that property. That buyer was very upset, and there ended up being a lawsuit against the agent because they didn't disclose that they couldn't do that.
Wow.
Now that's nothing ended up happening for the agent, so that's good. But that's just one of those things that there needs to be discussion about what is on that commitment and what are in the covenants and restrictions if you're buying into a neighborhood that has a homeowners association. So there's certain things like that are just going to show up on title. We had a deal, wasn't us here, but it was a few years back, that there was an investor that bought a property, and they were just going to rehab it. And as they were when they were rehabbing the house, the neighbor next door kept saying something about the water. You had to have a special water treatment plan in there. This was going on, and she just thought he was being a nosy neighbor. Well, after she was about halfway through the rehab, and the health inspector comes along, and the properties, they did have to have a special water treatment, and the health inspector comes annually. It was mentioned in the title commitment. There was like a book and page, but at any rate, the bottom line was, when we went back and looked at the commitment, the agent came back and said, well, you guys should have found this. It should have been known. I said, well, it's on your Schedule B2. So you guys should have seen it. And, we went back and forth. Well, when I actually went to pull the actual, what the book and page said, there had been a typo from the underwriter, and it was a satisfaction of mortgage. And so they got to put a claim on the property, and she got her water system free.
Wow.
Now that was a glitch, because if it wouldn't have been a typo on the underwriter's side, she would have just been out the money, because Correct. It was actually shown as an exception. But because the underwriter had made an error, they had to pay. And
boy, oh boy, underwriters rarely make any errors.
But that's certainly that's just a fluke that
Right.
happened. Because when they were telling me, they're like, they sent me the document. I'm like, that is not what this document is. And then I'm like, uh-oh. But anyway, that was just one of those things. So you always want to look at that, because had they looked at it, maybe she wouldn't have bought the house, or maybe she would have gotten it for less. I mean, whatever. If you'd actually known that that's what you needed, you would have made different arrangements when you bought the house.
No doubt, because
Just
you
happened
would
to
have
work out for
looked.
her.
You would have looked and seen that, or talked to someone like you about it.
Right.
And you bring up book and page. I find this world really fascinating just because of the quiet title world, judgment, liens, all of that stuff, mortgages. People don't know sometimes what book and page are, and what you'll find is on the commitments. It's not just there's a mortgage. It's not that there's just back taxes, but something that investors, sellers overlook are things like judgments and liens, and how if it's a heavy judgment and it's recently been recorded on that property, it ain't coming off for a while. Or if it's been there, I've seen this in strategies. If it's been there a while, you may wait till the 10 years, but maybe they renew it. So
Right. They can
talk to us a little
re-record
bit
it.
about that.
Right.
Yeah, it's strategy, right? Like, do you wait? Do you not do anything? Where have you seen that? Because judgments come up a lot in the title world.
Right. So they do come up a lot. And they can be renewed, but they have to be certified. So a judgment can just show up on title. And if it's not certified, it's really not a judgment, unfortunately. So you need to make sure that it is actually certified. I had one not too long ago where there were two judgments, and one of them, the 10 years was up and it hadn't been recertified. And I'm like, this is off. We need to
Right.
take care of this one, but the other one is gone. So, we have to make sure that we do look at all of that when we're looking at our title commitments. An IRS lien, not so much. It doesn't matter whether it is your homestead property or not, if it's an IRS lien. And one of the things that's happening right now during COVID is we had one that had an IRS lien, and I spent more than an hour, more than one day, trying to get a hold of the IRS and find out what we were doing with it. And when I finally got a hold of people, they told me that because you have to fax in a form to get the information, that they were at least 3 months behind just on their faxes due to COVID. So we were able to get the customer on the phone with us at the same time, speak to someone, and they, if you have the customer on the phone, you have a better chance of getting them to do anything for you. But this was, you have to stay on hold for probably an hour to speak to the IRS, probably any day of the week, but just, especially during COVID, to get the information so that we could get a payoff, because all the customer had was a receipt of his last payment. They've been paying on it for a few years. And so that doesn't really do anything for us. We actually have to have some kind of payoff for it.
Yeah, and IRS liens are tricky. There's different types. I don't know that world, but I know there's different types. It could be for employment. It could be for you didn't pay it for the taxes for that year. It could be for securities and stock issues that you didn't pay for. It doesn't matter. Those liens are so tricky, and they're a release in and of itself once it expires. And you got to read them carefully, because if they don't renew them, almost like judgment liens, if they don't renew them, that IRS lien is coming off. How much would you say you see IRS liens come up, like in a percentage wise in deals?
Maybe 5%. I don't see a ton of them.
But they do. I mean, they do come up in some ways.
Yeah, when they come up, it's not good. But
Right.
But I don't see a whole lot myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, again, the title commitments are a really big function for people. And going to someone like you, Lisa, going to Golden Dog is very important, because even for my business, we want to know what's happening up front, equity wise, deal wise. I don't know if you've ever seen anything like this. There was something recently where there was a mortgage on the property. The commitment, though, was very vague about there being a mortgage, but it listed something about an old motion to vacate or a vacate order. It was so weird because the mortgage company ended up going out and locking the property door, but nowhere was there a mortgage listed, and the title insurance was puzzled. How often have you ever seen mortgage companies or phantom mortgages pop up on a deal? Maybe it didn't show up initially, but later, right before the deal, boom, it happened.
I don't see that very often, but what I've seen is when people when they have used the mortgage modifications, back when we were in the turmoil in 2008 to 12 or whatever that was, people were getting mortgage modifications. And so they didn't think they had to pay that. They actually put a mortgage on the property and they didn't have to pay that amount back in the process, but it still was a lien. And people don't know that they owe money. They don't think that they owe money. And I have found that more often than not. So it's a HUD deal that they're getting, they don't remember that they even signed anything. I actually had someone at the closing table. We had to table it for a day, but she knew for sure she didn't know the money. And I pulled everything up, showed her signature on the mortgage that she signed, and was able to part of that. They show the note, but they don't show the whole note. But we had to go back through and say, this is what it is. The deal went through because we took all of our money off the table of what we could, because we had to pay our underwriter and we had to have a closing fee. The agents all took almost all their money off the table, and the seller came up with whatever she said she had to get it to close, because the buyers have no place to move. And, for something like that, people aren't going to do that every day, but everybody just wanted to get that deal to close. And she swore she didn't have a mortgage.
Wow.
But she did.
It's just the weirdest things when those come up.
Yeah.
And you're not
She was going
expecting.
to bring something in that day that showed it. And I said, this is what we have. And so I had to actually physically sit down with her and show her, here we go.
And we
got it closed.
Got it closed. That's important, right? Like, you want to get these things closed,
right?
Because at the end of the day, it makes everybody happy, and makes you look good too.
Well, and here, the thing that I wish we would all remember, I do this every day. The lenders do it every day. I mean, you do stuff every day. We don't have the same emotion as a residential mortgage closing. When you're looking at, when you're sitting down to the table, it is a life-changing moment for that buyer and the seller. No matter what, they're going on to something different or something new. Someone's either passed away, the family's gotten larger, we're moving out of town. It is so emotional, and there's so much stuff going on that I think we lose sight in that. It's a really important moment for them. It's not just, I want to close this deal. It's an important moment in those, the buyer and seller's life, period. And that's probably, it might be one of the biggest purchases they ever make. So for me to take it lightly, I just can't. It's important. Every deal is important, whether it's $100,000 or $1 million. It's an important deal for those people.
Yeah, that I've heard that before. I've heard people say that, look, I mean, whether it's a $30,000 deal or $1 million deal, title is, you got to get it done. You got to find a way to get it done. And that's incredible that you have that same mentality, Lisa, that, people are going to be gravitated to that. Talk to us also about, helping people, and you've been in the game for a while, and really working with other real estate professionals or people that may want to do title or they want to do investing, but you have a knack for being involved and helping people, helping them personally, professionally. Talk to us a little bit about that world of you and how you help people take their game to another level.
That's one of my favorite things to do. Just is to see someone else succeed, get a higher, get them to one inch higher than what they were, yesterday. So when I can get with my agents and I can help them farm their market, or we can do open houses together, or we can strategize on what they need to do to go from 2 million to 4 million, or just $1 million to 3, whatever that looks like. I had an agent a couple of years ago, and we're actually very good friends now as well. But she had met her goal for the year in September. And I said, she's like, so now I think I'm just going to coast. And I said, you know what? Why don't you increase and make your goal, get another $250,000 in, do that. See if we can, let's see if we can get you there. And she has thanked me over and over for doing that. So she's like, because I was just going to be happy with that I'd met my goal. But when we started talking about it and you said, well, why would you just want to make your goal when we can do this, this, and this? She said, it made me think about it and move on to reach a higher goal, which she did. But that is what I like. And people that I've worked with over the years, when someone leaves the company to better themselves, they get so upset. They're like, well, we taught them everything they knew. And, but I think that's the most gratifying thing to me, is that we were able to help someone get them to a higher level, to get them strong enough and smart enough and confident enough to go on to their next game. That's what I like. And so I love to help realtors. I love to help my employees. I love to help anyone in the same way. I talk to people that when I was first moved to Florida, my in-laws moved with me, and we've had to do things with the nursing home and help all that. And so I have a big passion for that too. So when I talk to people that are around my age and they're have to deal with their parents moving in with them, or, going into a nursing facility or whatever, that's just some of the things that I feel like I have knowledge about that I can help them. So that's just one of the things I like to do, no matter personal, professional, all of that.
So anybody out there watching, they know to go to Lisa if you are still in your game somewhere, but you really need direction, whether it is being an agent, being somebody in title. Lisa is there for you to help guide you, because she's been doing it for so long and she knows what she's doing, and she works at Golden Dog and they do this on a daily basis. So Lisa, what is driving you to help people? Is it something in your background? Was it somebody that helped you, so that kind of translated your mindset? What drives that ability to just want to help and help people?
I do think that maybe I was I always did well at school and all that, but I just felt like I was on the underdog as far as, growing up. We struggled a bit. So I feel like if I can ever help anyone, I always want someone to strive to be in a better area of their life. I mean, I know that I always wanted to do better than how I had grown up, and I always wanted everyone else to do better and, get better schooling, or get a better job, or, make yourself better for yourself, get them,
Right.
Make them self-confident. I can't say that I had anyone that just pushed me up, but I do know, life experiences for everybody. You want something better, and you want it better for everybody.
Right. And that kind of translates into people going to you for whatever business that they're trying to improve on. But Lisa is amazing also, because if it's something she doesn't do, she's incredible at pointing people in the right direction about where to go. Another amazing thing about her, because she's so helpful, so kind and giving, she is a great network of people. I remember when I first met you, Lisa, and you're like, oh yeah, I got somebody for this. I got somebody for this. So we know where to go. I can really help point you in the right direction. So a lot of people need that out there, right? Oh,
Right.
somebody's always looking for, like, I don't do everything, but I'll know people that do land use, that they'll do zoning and stuff like that. People always need that. And it's good for you to talk to people about that, like how you point people in the right direction.
Right, because we don't do probate. We're a title agency, so we don't do any of that, even though we have attorneys at the firm that aren't the agency, rather. So if it's probate, I can send them to Al. If it's somebody I need, I can give people different names, but I always say, well, this is who I would use. And there's also this person, or whatever. So there's several. You can give them a couple different people, but people that you've worked with in the past that will do the job and do it right, because you don't want to refer somebody to somebody that you don't know whether they're going to do a good job or not.
Of course. And reputation's everything in our industry,
Right.
and follow through and consistency, so many qualities. So If you know the right people, I mean, people are going to come to you to ask you that stuff. And you're always out there. I mean, pre-COVID, when we were always at the trade shows, you're always out there. You're beaming with energy. So when we all go back to those things, you know, Lisa will always be there at the booth, and she's got a great smile, handing out the golden retrievers. So she's always somebody you can go to. Speaking of COVID, Lisa, um, talk to us a little bit about how COVID and, you know, how did that change the title business or the refinances? Because the mortgages came down, the rates came down so much. What happened like right before it? And what did you do business wise? How did you all regroup internally? And then on a real estate level, what changed? You know, like it's such a multi-level question, because as soon as it hit, I'm sure you as a business, you all had to reconfigure, figure out, I mean, is the market going down? What are we going to do? Are we going to be booming? Talk to us about the pre-COVID and now COVID.
Right. So we were at TPC that week, and we were sitting we were on the 17th green, but we were sitting there, and we were all the group of us with Golden Dog and Dreamfinders and whoever. We were all together, and we were talking about, you know, this COVID thing. And then that later that day, it was like, well, at 6 o'clock tonight is it. No more spectators. And then the next day we heard no more golf, you know, no more anything. And so it was just like so sudden, even though it was coming on, but it seemed sudden to, I think, everyone. And we closed our doors for 2 weeks. We didn't close them, but we got computers for every single person so they could take them home, laptops, because we didn't have that for every single person. So there was huge expenditures immediately to make sure that we could all stay working, but not necessarily be in the office. Well, and you know, we were thinking it's going to be 2 weeks. I mean, everyone thought it was going to be a couple of weeks, then everything's going to be fine. So what we found was, we really, as a title company, you really can't work from home. You really can't work from home.
It's hard.
I know some people really are, but it's very difficult to close loans from home, close, you know, real estate transactions from home, and do post-closing and that whole thing. It's just not easy and not necessarily fair to have half staff home, half staff at the office. So what we ended up doing was, we were worried that yes, the real estate market was going to go down, and we were having to spend all this money and all of that. Well, clearly we were worried about nothing, because the business has been booming, and the refis have gone up, and the housing market has stayed well. So what we did was we did curbside closings. And the curbside closings, because it started in March, we literally had a tent set up outside. Wow. And you called us when you got here. We drove up, you drove up. We had tablets for everybody, so the realtor could be zoomed in to the closing.
Wow.
And we just did the paperwork through the door. So I would have a basket, and I would just do, here's your basket. And then I would talk about whatever it was and just go through the door and do that. They keep the pens, get the paper out, get everything closed. So that we did that probably and we still do it on occasion, and we'll probably start doing it again this fall if it gets bad again. But it got a little bit hot in July to do the curbside closings. So we got screens. We have screens in our conference rooms. We have a thermometer check when you first come in the room. We have air purifiers in each closing room. And of course we wipe them down between each closing, you know, but so we are doing, like, we have it says when we were last in the closing room and who, you know, when it was cleaned. So that part has changed. We weren't allowing realtors in for a while. So it was basically having the buyers in one room, sellers in the next room, and the realtor would have to come in on a Zoom call or not come to the closing at all, just for safety purposes, nothing else. That did not make a lot of people happy, but we were trying to stay safe.
Right.
So we are allowing the realtors back in now, but everyone is, you know, sanitizing and wearing their mask at the closing table, even with the screens. And it is just changing that way, but we are still doing buyers and sellers separate 95% of the time.
Did Golden Dog realize that they could be more, not just remote, but more electronic, or more, I mean, because you bought tablets, that's unique to get everybody to zoom in. Did you realize that there was a component to being flexible and not being the old dinosaur title company, like electronic stuff? I mean, in my world, we did, right? We were doing everything DocuSign and
Right.
stuff like that. Did you
Right.
find
So
that?
the thing that we can't do, I mean, so we have remote online notarization that had been approved like the July before and was starting January 1. I'd gone to an underwriter conference for CE credit beginning of March, and we actually had a show of hands who was actually using RON, which is the remote online notarization. And this was out of about 100 agents, and one person raised their hand. So even though all of that was approved to do the remote online notarization, most of us were not utilizing that. And we can use, we don't do it here yet, but we do have a company that we use to do some of the remote online notarization. The thing about it is if there is a loan involved, the lender will not accept all of the documents that way. So you still have to have ink signed, certain documents ink signed, wet signature is what we call it. And then you have to have those back before you can fund. So even though that has been approved by the state, there's still some things that we need to do, not necessarily title wise, but partially title wise and partially lending wise of what they can do to sell that note down the road. That's really what it's about, is that they can't sell the note, which is why they can't accept it if it's not ink signed.
Amazing how Florida goes into a new era, but the mortgage companies still say the way they are.
Well, I don't think they thought about, I mean, I just think that was one of those things that they're not thinking completely about it. And you know, there's certainly higher chance of fraud when you're doing everything DocuSign and, you know, that way. But with the remote online notarization, I do like, because they do authenticate it. You are on video. They record the whole closing. I mean, it is interesting for sure. Because since we were using them, I was the witness. So I was able to DocuSign my signature, and they had my ID and all that.
Right.
So they do have certain things they have to follow. So I mean, I like it, and it'll be the future. Even our networking things, I figured that, you know, this time next year, we're going to be doing both. You're going to be doing live things. You're going to be doing things remote. That's just the way it's going to be. And I feel like our networking things also are going to be, I'm going to do a live class, and then I'm going to do a Zoom class.
Right.
I think we're going to just be doing both, you know, going forward, because it has made a lot of sense. I think people are getting tired of the Zoom classes.
Okay.
They want to do something live.
Right.
Because I've gone to a few networking things and it just, everyone shows up. But it's made a big difference in being able to go and take this class, but you're not really leaving the house. You're not having to drive 40 minutes, get there, do whatever you're doing, and then get somewhere else. It does make it easier for people to get their CE or to get their knowledge or whatever they're doing, doing it on video.
Right.
Remotely.
And even during COVID, when we had that NEFAR virtual meeting, which was so helpful because people couldn't meet together, they couldn't come together, but everybody's watching the presentation. And so I agree with you 100%. I think the best strategy once we all come out of this thing is when we go back to live events to still incorporate the live Zoom, the webinar. It's just another, you know, component to keeping that image.
Exactly. It's just like when like short sales will never be gone. I always think of that, is because it is now another tool to use instead of foreclosure. So it's that one of those, I don't want to, not that we want to get back to short sales, but I think they're just always going to be a tool that you can use instead of going into foreclosure. So This is just going to be a tool that we'll use to network or to do classes, you know, going forward.
Right.
Which is a
1-2 punch. Yeah,
yep.
Absolutely. So what did you notice though about the refinances? Did you get an influx of refinances because of the mortgage rates? That was a huge thing. I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard recently if it's still going lower. I think there were some VA loans that were just super low 2% area. What did you notice about all the refis?
It was huge. Just, I mean, because we were thinking that we were going to be so slow. We hired people during COVID, a lot of people during COVID.
Amazing.
Because we needed people. So it really just changed, you know, you hate to say that was a good thing. I mean, if the rates would go low, we would have been busy anyway, but it was just like the perfect storm. So we are still seeing some refis for sure. And I think we'll continue to. I think we'll get another influx. But I've talked to lenders that say they turn them down because they're trying to work just with the realtors and get the sales out. So they won't even do a refi. They're only working with the agents. So I think that the loan companies out there, the lenders out there that will do the refis, I think they have a huge market, because the people that are used to using realtors all the time to get their business, that's their resource, they're not doing them.
Yeah, it's you have to find the right lenders.
Right.
And you have to find the right title companies that do that kind of work. I don't think every single title company does refinances. I think some gear away from that because they also don't deal with lenders that do that as well. So if you do that, that's super important for people to know. They're always looking for refis with buyers, investors to tap into their equity.
And we go to their house and close them too.
That's great to know. So you can do mobile closings.
Right.
Good to know. So anybody out there that is looking to not just come in the office or have curbside title closings, they will come out to you. Awesome to know, Lisa. People are always looking for that mobile notary or mobile witnesses and mobile people.
Right.
So I think, something that we all kind of want to know about you kind of went through some stories about the mineral rights and some of the situations with the guardianship. Tell us what has been one of the biggest deal killers in the title world. We're not going to avoid probate because we're going to talk about that. But tell me, like, in your world, what is that biggest deal killer?
Appraisal. If the appraisal doesn't come in, and then if it doesn't come in high enough, and the seller, either the buyer or seller can't afford to change it, deal killer, just like that.
Would have never thought that would have been the answer you would have given.
So I know you just want something title wise, but there's not, most title things you can work out for the most part.
It doesn't matter. The whole thing is people need to know what that could be, because I rarely see appraisals, right? You see appraisals more than I. Real estate agents see appraisals. You never know what someone sees from their perspective about a deal killer. I mean, yeah, my world probate, but your world appraisal. So what is it? How do you find the right appraiser? Like, how do you find the right one that come in to get the job done? Or is it not just someone, it's just the deal itself is off?
Well, it might just be the deal itself is off, but the lenders can't, like back in the day, you could pick your appraisers. You cannot. So it just goes into rotation.
Wow.
The lenders might have 5 appraisers that they use, but they still have to rotate them. And if it's a VA, they have just VA appraisers. So you don't have a choice in your appraiser, really.
Okay.
So there's
wow.
that.
So you're dealing with it. You're dealing with whatever you get, whatever comes across your table, and whatever the number is, you live with it.
Well, and the thing is that the market we are so short in inventory for the resale market, that they don't know whether it's going to appraise or not, because it's, yesterday it was 340 and today it's 360, because that's what the market is taking. I mean, so appraising is a tricky world. I don't do that. So
yeah, that's
off to them, because it's crazy. Even in my neighborhood, a house down the street sold for probably $100 grand more than I thought it should. I was like, wow. Good for us, but wow.
That can happen, right? That can just happen the way it is.
Yeah.
What have you seen? So I have to talk about this. This is a huge component to my show. What has been the craziest probate thing that you've dealt with? Not the guardianship one, but like what's been that probate story for you that it's not going to take a week, but it's been 8 months, it's been 12 months, it's 2 years. What has that been?
Well, because you might have a brother or sister that doesn't agree with what's happening, or they don't want to sign their rights, or they don't want to, they argue about what's happening, or if they want to sell. I had one last year where they were selling the property, and there were 3 sisters in 2 different states, but only one of them was in Florida. One of the sisters gave her interest to a son. So we had to get everyone to sign their rights, or the deed to get their money in different places at different times. And they were arguing over the amount of money that the sister that was taking care of the property here. She was saying that she spent money on this, whatever she did. She spent money, I'm sure she did, to get the house ready to sell, to do whatever. And they didn't think she should be owed that money. And then they had the person that was originally the executor of the estate. The probate was finished, and he was out of the country, but finished. So it went to all the kids because they thought it was just going to go to him and he was going to distribute the money. But it got out of probate before the house sold. And so then they were stuck. This is the way it was going to go, third. And they weren't agreeing with that. So it was, I had many a night that it was last year about this time that I was talking to one sister or the other about what they wanted to do with the deal. I mean, like at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, trying to talk them down or talk them on board to get the deal closed. Because the bottom line is, this is what the court said. This is what you get.
Was it Homestead?
Pardon me?
Was it Homestead
Yes.
property? So people don't, or investors and real estate agents don't realize the importance of homestead property, not because of the tax exemption and the Save Our Homes, but because of the understanding about when someone dies, the importance of that primary residence. Whether it be you would need all 3 sisters on the real estate contract, whether you need all 3 to agree on the probate. But the most important part about the whole thing is they all have to sign at the closing.
Right. I have one right now where it's that it went through probate, and there's actually 9 people that have to sign.
Ooh, fun.
Because one of the siblings passed away and it went to the grandkids. And I mean, and yes. So they've got 2 of them have, how's it go? Two of them have a third, and then we have 6th interest for like 6. I mean, it's just wild, but
they get that crazy where you're starting to break it down, where the estate only owns like a 4th, and then you have the 9 people. So when you're writing it either in the petitions or you're writing it for title, it's like a 9th of the 4th, and it's just so crazy.
Right.
Okay, so good. You have been through probate situations before, and especially in the title world, it gets really tricky. They certainly do. They're solvable at some stage. They are when they get really crazy. But that's amazing to know. I mean, hey, you've been through this stuff title wise. People really need to know that. So also, Lisa, talk to us about the charities and the philanthropy that you are a part of. Clearly, a big part of Golden Dog is the dog and the golden retriever itself.
Right.
And backstage, we were talking about how you all are big for the Humane Society, or you're big for the charities. Talk to us about that. Anybody that wants to get involved or reach out to you about it to ask how they get more involved, people would love to hear about that.
So we are one of the sponsors for the Jacksonville Humane Society, and we've done stuff with Nassau County as well, because we have an office in Fernandina Beach, Jacksonville, and Fleming Island, Orlando. We just opened up in South Carolina. So we have done stuff with both of those humane societies, but they normally will do the Strut Your Mutt or Mutt March.
Right.
And we usually have a tent there and help collect the money and walk for it. And then they do the Toast to the Animals, which is normally in September. They did it virtually this year as well. And we do the auction and all that kind of stuff. We like to do that. I of course have a golden retriever, so I love it. And then I also do with some other realtors and affiliates. We do a run once a month for a charity. So these runs that I had no idea how many runs there were. Honestly, I didn't. There's probably 20 a month or whatever, but each of the runs will go for a charity. So we just pick whatever charity. We'll do the run that does the charity that we like the most. So there's probably 5 or 6 of us that just do that. Anyone can come run with us because we mostly walk. just saying.
Right.
So they're 5Ks. And it's really just a great time. You get there by 8, you're done by 10. And you've done a good cause. So we like doing that too.
In the community, in the investor community, there's so many people that are part of charities and strategic philanthropy, whether it's Best Buddies, whether it's Mission House. And the more I see it about what they are doing and the more people I see get involved, it's amazing how they just really get into it, and they really are supporting an amazing cause. And you could just see the transformation in them. And so anybody that's interested in this, Lisa is a huge component to this charity philanthropy world. So people that do want to get more involved know they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I do Best Buddies too. I love Best Buddies, and we do stuff for Ronald McDonald House and just, all that stuff.
I'll give them a shout out. Wally Conway and Paulo Gonzalez are huge into the Best Buddies, and I've seen them host events and awards and stuff. It's an amazing thing to watch that. It's amazing to see. It's not just about the real estate business, but helping the community and really being a part of it, which is it's incredible. So anybody that is interested in that, please get in touch with Lisa. She'll be more than happy to help you and help get you involved in this stuff. Lisa, before we wrap it up, I think it's very important for people to know. So you are a title company. You are Golden Dog Title. Who is it that you're looking for? What is important to you business-wise? The types of people, agents, investors. Who are you looking to connect with further? Who are you looking for business-wise? So when somebody's watching this, they know that if they're looking for it, they can get in touch with you.
So I always wanted realtors and I always want investors, but I'd like to know handyman, painters, roofers, people that are, inspectors, because I talk to agents every day. And so for me to be able to say, okay, well, I know this person and they work on this side of town, and I've worked with this person before and they can help you here. I like to be able to refer people out to my agents, so everybody helps each other. So anybody that helps work on houses, I guess, is going to be the thing. I would like to know, maybe even a cleaning person.
Rehabbers.
Yep.
That's different. I think I've asked that question to a couple people before. First time I've heard, roofers and painters and stuff like that. There's plenty of people that where this gets posted. I mean, there's roofers, there are painters, there's people that are doing marble, tile, whether it's tree removal or trees and stuff like that. So that's great to know. I mean, it's almost like the auxiliary stuff that people aren't thinking about. It's not just the agents or just the investors, but but that spectrum of people you're looking for.
Because the agents are going to tell their customer, or they may need to get something done in the house. But I mean, it's really just about helping all of the community.
Right. And getting that whole spectrum so that, they're coming to you for that stuff. So, yep. Any agents, investors out there looking for title companies, looking for somebody that's really going to help them get the job done, go through those weird situations that Lisa's talked about throughout the whole show, you know where to go for that. And Lisa, how can people find you? How can people get in touch with you? Where are you? Talk to us.
All right. So you can call me anytime on my cell, which is 904-476-1966. Right now during COVID, I'm in the Phillips Highway office most of the time, which is 904-503-5170. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram at Professional Title Slayer. This is my name on Instagram. And you can reach me email. It's lisa.andrews@goldendogtitle.com. It's lisa.andrews@goldendogtitle.com.
And just go into Google. Go into Google, find Golden Dog Title. It's good to have the Facebook because everybody's on Facebook now these days. So great to know. Now you know where to find her. And Any last words? Anything I didn't cover that you'd like to mention real quick? Final words from Lisa Andrews.
Well, I thank you for having me on today, Al. I really had fun today. I would just like to reach out to anybody if we would love to earn your business. So if you have never used Golden Dog Title, just give me a ring and give us a chance. We'd love to earn your business. I don't expect people to just drop down and give it, but if I could meet up with you and talk to you about it, or just have a second title company or attorney, it's always smart to have. So if we could do that for you, I'd love it.
It's always good to have those people in your arsenal, because you never know the situation you're going through. So again, love having you on the show. Love hearing your knowledge and expertise in the title world. And thank you for taking your time to come out and talk to me about all this. And all the viewers, anybody that's watching it, is going to get great knowledge. So thank you again, Lisa. I loved it. We went through a lot.
Thank you so much, Al. Have a great day.
You too. Okay, everybody. If you like more videos like this, if you like more content like this, check out my YouTube channel at Al Nicoletti, and find me on Facebook at Al Nicoletti, where there will be all this content, the video with Lisa, videos and podcasts with different guests that I will bring on the show. And I will see you next time on the show, where we don't just find deals, people take action so that deals find them. I'll see you next time.